If you only knew the power of the dark side.
For the love of God, we have no good news this week.
Unfortunately, no.
I do have a good Star Wars thing to share today, so there's that at least. Plus, we have a special guest coming on a little bit later named Brett Stevens, who worked on... I'm sorry, Brett Smith. Stevens.
Wow.
Wow, Micah. Brett Smith, colorist for Jawbreakers, Lost Souls, and Trump's Space Force. And a little bit more than that. Let's go ahead and get to it. My name is Micah Curtis.
And I'm Alex Baldwin, also known as The Hatman.
Welcome to Micah and The Hatman Live. Alright, let's get to it. Hatman, your pick of the week. You watched some Autism when I told you not to.
God.
Tell us about it.
God.
Por qué, Hatman? Por qué?
Movie. You know,
I don't know. Why did you see it? I told you not to.
You know, I'll say this. I'll say the one good thing about it is that it's not as bad as Pacific Rim Uprising.
That's not saying much.
I know, it's not. But dear God, what in the hell was this movie?
Bad?
Yes. Let me just break it down. They've actually got like some relative star power here.
Relative.
I mean, well, good actors. We know that they're good actors.
Yes, that we can say.
Keegan-Michael Key is in it. Thomas Jane is in it. The OG Punisher.
Hell yeah.
Alfie Allen. Freaking Theon Greyjoy.
Yep, Alfie Allen's in this.
I don't count Olivia Munn as anyone who can act because
she has two emotions. No. But Boyd Holbrook.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, was a great villain in Logan. And he was, God, they worked so hard with bad shit in this movie. They really did. That's basically the story of it. And I'll let you I'll let you continue. That's all I have to say.
Well, even then, like, just wasted. Absolutely wasted the talent that they had. And on top of that, like, they obviously had to go for a more CG approach because, fuck traditional effects, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't even look good. It didn't look convincing at all. It looked like a damn Xbox 360 game.
It was basically a locust from Gears of War with dreads.
Yes! You're not wrong. It looked awful. And then they tried to pull this twist midway through. Oh, there's a super predator that is hunting this one, and he's part human. They've been injecting human DNA. And they're looking for the greatest warriors on the planet and the next step in the evolutionary process. By the way, did you know some people don't think that being on the autism spectrum is a disorder, that is just the next step in human evolution?
Ah!
I've known people like that. I've literally known people like that are like, autism is not a disorder.
Jay Cutler.
So people should not try to find a cure for it. Like, I'm sorry, but I have a cousin who is very, very severely autistic. He is on that end of the spectrum. He cannot live by himself. He is not the world's greatest fucking warrior just because he is super, super good at some shit like Angry Birds. That's not even a fucking joke. No. What a bullshit twist. That's like M. Night Shyamalan tier. And I'm not talking about early M. Night Shyamalan. I'm talking about the shit kind.
I love how the twist was global warming. Was literally millions will die!
Global warming and autism will save us all.
Fucking man, bear, pig.
Yeah.
Super serial predator is what this should have been called.
Oh, no. And then the stupid twist that, the first predator was coming to actually help humanity.
Which is why he started killing people, yeah.
It doesn't make any sense either. Oh, he had a gift. The War Machine armor.
Yeah. The key to saving humanity is Iron Man.
Yeah, it's War Machine. I get it. Shane Black, you just came off of Iron Man 3, but my God. My God. Ugh. Jesus. What can I say about it? What can I say? Olivia Munn was absolutely worthless. I don't even know why she was in the damn movie.
Women.
Yeah, probably. But Jesus Christ, she did absolutely nothing. Except look pretty and then take her clothes off in a couple scenes.
Yeah.
Oh, what a surprise.
Yeah.
What an absolute surprise. And then like the stupid Easter eggs, throwbacks, whatever you want to call them. You know, oh, you are one beautiful motherfucker. And then get to the choppers. I cringed so hard, I think I had an aneurysm. Just no. Absolutely no. I've probably said this before, but the way I judge a movie's quality is how many times I look at the clock to see how much time is left in it.
Yeah.
I probably spent half the time looking at the screen as I did looking at my fucking watch. It's just not good, not engaging, not even fun. Like, it's not even a popcorn movie.
No.
It's just stupid. And on top of that, the finale is total bullshit because everyone just dies just one after another. It's not even a slow burn or anything. It's just like, okay, let's kill them off all at once because we've done nothing with them so far, so let's just have some cool-looking deaths.
Yeah.
Which are honestly just rather cheap anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And the Punisher literally goes out like Logan.
Mm-hmm.
Except, higher up elevation-wise.
Yeah.
Venom is next week. Please, dear God, let that be good.
Dude, that Venom clip. Mask! Copy! Fuck right!
Please let Venom be good.
The turn in the wind thing is forgiven. After that.
Please don't let that movie be a turn.
That was some classic Venom right there. That was straight out of the comics.
He moves like Venom, man.
He moves exactly like him. He threw people around like he throws Spider-Man around by the foot.
He moves like Venom.
Holy shit. God. It was like Mark Bagley's Venom just came to life.
I hope to God they have not only been showing us the good bits of the movie.
I'm praying that they haven't.
Please. I know PG-13, but...
But, dude, he's taking people by their goddamn feet, and he's beating a motherfucker with a motherfucker! Okay? That's Venom! That's what he does! That was fucking awesome! The rest of the movie might be bad, but that was cool! Holy shit. It was beautiful. I loved it. And just the synchronicity between Eddie and the symbiote. The fact that the symbiote was picking up on what was going on. That they're basically having fun. Because that's another thing that Eddie and Venom do. Is they have fun with themselves. It's part of what I really love about it. About that character. Is he can be fun. Oh. Okay. Let's move on to my pick of the week.
Yeah, please. I don't want to talk about this damn movie anymore.
Okay. So... Oh, wait. This is not Hatman's pick, by the way. I fucked up in the image editing. So
Hatman's pick.
Yeah, my bad. So let's ignore that. I don't want to fix it, honestly, because I just don't feel like opening Photoshop right now. But, so, my pick of the week, is an expansion for Star Wars The Old Republic called Knights of the Fallen Empire. So, how many people wanted KOTOR 3? Everyone, right? You're not, your sound's not coming through, partner.
I raised my hand.
Oh.
Yes.
That's what this is. Star Wars The Old Republic, for better or worse, is Knights of the Old Republic 3. Completely. This is the story this is the close to the story that really started in KOTOR 2. Is up to the point where I am at. And they have retooled the game to be more single player friendly. So if you just literally just want to download it and play through it single player, you can. And if you subscribe, you get all the expansions for free. Plus, you don't have to deal with all the shit that's locked behind a paywall. Because there's, as Brainbox can tell you, because he's been playing it with me, is that the they lock some annoying stuff behind a paywall to make you to go, all right, god damn it, I do have $30. Here's a 2-month subscription card, fuck off. You know? But I probably played like 40 hours of this game so far since picking it back up. And I played hours upon hours of it back when it first came out. So, I really, I have been genuinely surprised as to how much I've enjoyed myself since I've come back to it. The basic idea is that, we have finally found out what it was that had Revan so scared that he left the Republic when it needed him the most. We found out what happened and what this emperor that was being discussed is. And it's fucking frightening. Because this guy's basically Galactus. And it's scary. And I have to say, there are a lot of elements to this game, which is why I opened up and said if fans listen to what I'm saying and they like it, I would be willing to open up another Discord server for access to people who want to play the game with people that are already in the community. Regardless, there's so much to this story. My recommendation, if you just want to play through it single player for a couple months, because it's long, but there's a lot of good shit here. You're going to want to deal with one of two classes. Either the Jedi Knight or the Sith Warrior. Because those are really the classes that the storyline kind of focuses around. I've been playing through it as Sith Juggernaut, which is basically the tank, single saber warrior, Sith Warrior. And you can make your character as complex or as simple as you want him to be, and you can RP pretty well with him. So, needless to say, the basic idea is that when Knights of the Fallen Empire begins, you have... It's not really spoiling at this point that Revan comes back. And you deal with that in the expansion before this. In Knights of the Fallen Empire, for better or worse, the Emperor is back. With all the frightening power, on top of having a fleet that he has been making for ages, out of nowhere. And it deals with him and this family that he has basically brought forward of psychos. And this, this new empire that he has created in the shadows. And I will say, this is, for those of you out there who have said, I want the good BioWare again, this is the good BioWare. There are good people still in a BioWare studio, and it is in the heart of Texas. And they're working on this game. I can also say from previous experience that all the operations, which are the raids that I've played, are very well done. If you want to find out if your PC can run it, what I would do is I would Google something called "Can you run it?" There's a cheap software you can download that will actually tell you if you can run it and if you can run it on max settings. So that would be my recommendation there. Needless to say, though, it is a fun as hell storyline. I'm very excited to be playing it with more people. I played it with Brainbox. I played it with Talon Silverbane. There's other people that are going to be joining as well. So, yeah, it's a lot better than it used to be honest with you. It's a lot more streamlined. It gives you, help in regards to getting your character, up to where they need to be. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. The only MMO I've ever enjoyed. The only one, so. Alright. Alright, so we have a special guest, like I said. Brett Smith, colorist for Jawbreakers, Lost Souls, and for Trump's Space Force. We're waiting for him to join right now. While we wait for Brett to get here, I do have an announcement to make in regards to the comic books that I'm working on. Some of you might have caught my writing stream this week, where we discussed how I'm crafting one of the issues of Project Lazarus. Project Lazarus has found an artist, a penciler. So, and on top of that, I actually got this guy's permission to say that he is absolutely a part of it. His name is Bob Stone. And Bob was actually referred to me by one of my patrons, Artemis Worm. Said this guy's really talented. He's, he'd probably be willing to pick it up. Artemis also vouched for me as well to him. So when I messaged him, he said he's down. And we're going to do it, man. We're just looking for a colorist now. And we'll be able to go ahead with the project. Hopefully at the beginning of next year is when you'll see the Indiegogo prop up. As of right now, the Indiegogo is simply going to be for issue number 1. And yeah, I'm really excited about bringing it forward, man. I really am. I'm going to continue to ask friends of mine to give me more advice in regards to how to do this, and if there's anything else that we need to add for Indiegogo stuff. But we've got it pretty well planned out, I think, so far, Hatman and I do. So, but we've got a really good, we've got a really talented artist. Hatman will be my editor as well. So yeah, all we're looking to put the team together. We'll probably end up hiring a letterer as well at a certain point. If not, if we don't raise enough money to do so, I'll just do it. Needless to say, though, I'm really excited about this. And as many people already know, the team for Inglewood is pretty much set with myself and Brian Martinez working on that book as well. Time that we will be starting a campaign for that to be determined, but I'm excited. I'm very excited about it.
Fun times ahead.
So, and I already had vetted Bob before doing this, so I'm being very cautious with who I pick here. But I'm pretty psyched. Bob's a very talented guy, very chill dude, from what I've noticed. Just really good guy from what my interactions with him. He's very excited to be a part of it. I've gotten behind the scenes. I've gotten a lot of encouragement from people too, in regards to things. So yeah. It's pretty badass, man. I am excited.
It's happening.
Yes, it is. Hard to believe, too. Like, I never thought it would happen. I have 3 dreams in life. I have 3. The first was to be a preacher at a megachurch. Obviously, that's never going to happen. I just don't have it in me. Second was to play in a band at the Budokan. Not going to happen. Can't find any musicians who I want to play with. So 3, be an author, and it's happening. It might not be like job number 1 for me, but I'm gonna get to put that on my resume, and that's something that a lot of people aren't gonna get the chance to do. So all right. Well, I haven't heard back from Brett just yet.
Shall we just go ahead and move on? And
yeah, we'll go ahead. I went ahead and sent him
Bring
the
him
link
in?
for the hangout, and we'll go ahead and just move to the next topic. So,
bring him in when we...
sad news, in a sense. Kathleen Kennedy got her contract extended.
Yeah.
So, that's
There have
the
been
thing.
there have been rumors, and we talked about them before, that she was getting canned this month.
Yep.
That's very much the opposite. What does this mean for Star Wars?
They're going to lose more money. Or
Yeah.
rather, I should say, they're not going to make as much money as they want to.
Yeah.
Now, one thing to say is this. They have not confirmed whether or not Rian Johnson is working on the next film.
No, but I think with Kathleen Kennedy on board, she's going to want to keep Rian Johnson. Because she and him seem to be rather close.
Yes.
Which is not...
He is her pick to
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah. The thing is, though, with Rian Johnson, I would still trust him with some kind of original story than I would with like an established one, like a main series film. I mean, he's good at the world building aspect. Looper was good world building. As far as like actual plot and stuff goes, no. Mm-mm. He is sort of like George Lucas in that regard. He needs somebody to rein him in.
Yeah. Because he also has too much of an agenda, too.
Yes, absolutely. He needs somebody to rein him in. Like George Lucas had Gary Hertz, God rest his soul. And that's part of the reason why Return of the Jedi was, not the best, and why the prequel trilogy was not the best. Rick McCallum was a yes man.
Yep.
And Rian Johnson, apparently, there's nobody to rein him in because Kathleen Kennedy's like, do what you want. I don't care. It's a shame. It's a real shame.
I agree. But yeah, it's a very tone-deaf decision, in my opinion. I think that, if I were on Disney, I would think, like, this is a guaranteed moneymaker. This is a guaranteed top of the box office for a long time.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And, she has botched it very visibly. She refused to take the fans seriously in regards to their complaints.
Mm-hmm.
Rian Johnson's the exact same way. He continues to complain about toxicity this, toxicity that, and he refuses to take responsibility for not putting forward a very good film. But this is where we're at right now. We're at this position where they refuse to really just even look at what's going on here and say we screwed up and we're willing to do something better. And that you can't have that attitude in business long term. You will end up destroying something. So I'm mystified by it. I really am. It's like, why? Why keep them?
I don't know.
Why keep them? I would like to hear a reason.
You would think, because the last two Star Wars movies were so underperforming. Solo especially was a massive disappointment. But I guess they're going by the home media sales now, because The Last Jedi, did fairly good in home media sales. And part of me is wondering if that's just the collectors, the hardcore Star Wars fans
The
are
whales,
like, well,
yeah.
I've got to have it anyway.
Pretty much. It's the same reason why I own the prequel trilogy. There's no good reason for me to own Episode 2, but I do.
Yeah. Well, I don't own Episode 1 anymore, so I've got it on digital, but that's because I've got all the theatrical versions on digital.
Yeah. But that's just the general issue that I have with it is, you know, I rant about business acumen quite a bit. And I feel that a lot of companies, especially those in Hollywood, don't have the same business acumen as many others do. And when you keep around people who aren't making you money or aren't going to make you the money that you could be making, you're putting a cap on your own earning potential, especially in an up economy. Like, there's no excuse. We are in a day and age where people honestly want safe media, in the sense that they know what they're getting is good. They're not taking a risk by buying a ticket. That's just the end of it. A lot of people, using Venom as a template, a lot of people will probably not see Venom opening weekend. I think more people will probably, that they'll probably see, if it ends up being good, they're going to see a lot of people in week 2 that go and see it. You know, it's going to be word of mouth that makes it big if it is big. And Marvel has the same problem, Marvel Comics, in the sense that they keep people around that have no business being there and have very bad business philosophies for reasons that people just don't understand. You know, like, they moved what's his face away from Axel Alonso from the editor-in-chief position, but they kept Tom Brevoort, who constantly encouraged the things that Axel Alonso was doing. It's like, well, you're not really helping here. And then you bring in C.B. Cebulski, who seems like he has promise at first, and then he comes out and says Marvel is creator-focused. So you're not fan-focused? You're not money-focused? You're an idiot, C.B. Cebulski. You're an idiot. So this is unfortunate. This really is. You know, yeah. I think that whatever's next probably won't be up to snuff. You know, the last one tried to be strong on emotion, ended up being weak on story. I think that that's kind of a problem that Rian Johnson has when it comes to the way he tells stories. Because some people, man, they can't do both. They just can't, and he is definitely one of them. Yeah, it's a bummer. It really is.
That it is. It's just, I mean, it sucks, because y'all know how big of a Star Wars fan I am. And just the direction that it's heading in, I was really hopeful after The Force Awakens. Because I was so hesitant, disturbed even, after I heard Disney had purchased Lucasfilm and announced Episode 7 the same day. I was like, good God, that's no. That's no. And then The Force Awakens ended up being a pleasant surprise for me. I know, you know, some of y'all in the chat are not fans, and that's fine. I liked it. I still like it. I still enjoy it.
Yeah.
Even if it is a rehash of
A New Hope.
Of Star Wars. Yeah, I don't care. I still liked it. And Rogue One I thought was kind of underwhelming, except for the end of it, really. And then The Last Jedi, y'all know how I feel about that. And Solo, y'all also know how I feel about that. It's not heading in a good direction.
Josh, did you mean to give $50?
Josh, stop throwing money at us.
Says y'all are thank you, man. Thank you.
Why y'all be throwing money at us? Or throw your money at Micah. I don't want your money. But no, it's just you know, I see that Disney does want fans to really enjoy Star Wars. But for God's sake, sometimes you do have to listen to them. Like, it's not enough to say, yeah, we've got a Star Wars park coming out and a hotel that's featured in it, and you know, we're telling really cool stories in the animated series, except Resistance looks kind of bad. So
yeah. Well, they're bringing back Clone Wars at least.
Yes, they are doing that. That's something good.
And
that's something good.
And like I said earlier, the Old Republic is still fun. That's the interesting thing. Since Return of the Jedi, the best thing to happen in Star Wars has been the Knights of the Old Republic series.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's undisputed at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Even non-Star Wars fans regard that game with such admiration.
Oh, there's Brett.
There's Brett.
How's it going?
Going well,
It's
man.
going.
Nice.
Say, we're looking to bring the mood up, hopefully, after discussing Kathleen Kennedy remaining at Lucasfilm. So,
yeah, I don't know why anybody even anticipated that they were going to get rid of her.
I had figured that they would have a little bit more business acumen. That's just me.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and that was me probably 6 months ago. But you know, when you look at things like the New York Times and CNN, and nearly every single a business that's run by leftists, and they're all failures. They're all bleeding out the eyeballs in debt. New York Times, they have to basically live off of the Sulzbergers.
Basically,
that paper doesn't make any money. CNN doesn't make any money. Marvel Comics doesn't make any money. So, you know, I'm kind of at a loss. But at the same time, I also know that Hollywood doesn't really make any money either, you know, aside from it, which is why they do very little work now. Mm-hmm. You look at the amount of movies that were made in 1982. It's like close to 100. You know, what do we get these days? We get like 12 because, you know, they have to make these gigantic blockbusters in order to make any cash. So they used to do volume, and you know, now they just do you know, crap basically. You know, with the exception of a couple things, you know, here and there. So, but it's bizarre. I'm like you. I'm like, where's the board of directors? Where is anybody who's interested in actually turning a profit? These people have shareholders who I would imagine, you know, we are probably the only people who are probably questioning what's going on. But I've been there, man. You know, as a entrepreneur in business, you know, independent business person, you know, for 30 years, you got to turn a profit. You know, it's how you stay alive. But I can't figure it out why these people are hell bent on losing money and being fine with it, other than the only thing they exist for is to push a narrative.
I agree completely. So,
You know?
ladies and gentlemen, for those who are just tuning in, we have been joined by the illustrious Brett Stevens, a man who I have been told by everybody else I need to be talking to. Smith.
Smith.
My brain
You
does
keep
not
calling
work.
him Stevens.
I
wow.
have no idea why. Today is not a good day for me, my friend.
Right.
Just don't call him Brett Kavanaugh.
Hey, at least Kavanaugh spells his first name with 2 T's. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
So
It is.
But Brett, of course, some of you will probably know, colorist on Jawbreakers Lost Souls, also on Trump's Space Force, because I had just talked to Chuck not too long ago.
Nice.
Yeah, that was a humbling moment to talk to a guy who's as legendary as that is.
yeah.
So
And he's really cool, and he's really laid back and easygoing. Like, that's the funny thing about Chuck.
Oh yeah,
So,
he has every right, I think, as any other writer that's been out there, to be as egotistical as he would like to be, but he's not.
none at all.
And
Yeah.
it shocked the hell out of me, because I've been treated like garbage by writers who have like half the accomplishments he does. So
Yeah, you know, I think it's a pretty common thread throughout. You know, most of the people that I work with, they're all very approachable. They're all just normal dudes or normal guys, you know. Mm-hmm. And whether it's Timothy Lim, Mark Pellegrini, Chuck, it's amazing when I kind of take stock of all the guys and the people that surround me, and as far as like professionals and men and women, they're all very approachable, very normal people, and and you can there's no ego there.
Yeah.
And there never has been. I've always considered it really humbling, to be in this business and to do what I do for almost 30 years. I'm going on 28, and to get hired out of high school into comics. And, it's when I look back on it now, it's sort of like, it's like storybook. It's like something out of a movie or something, or a novel. And I'm like, wow. And so I just count my blessings, man. And I know Chuck's the same way, and Mike Barron, and a lot of these guys. Everybody's just grateful and fortunate to be here, and also to have, amazing fans. Really just the best fans in the world.
So one thing that I've been wanting to ask you, since yourself and myself, and there's so many people that seem to be involved in it at this point, we could just call it Comicsgate at this point, even though some people like to pretend it's only been happening over the last 6 months. I think it's been longer than that, or at least been brewing.
Well, it's certainly been long. It's been going on longer for Chuck.
Yeah, absolutely. But
so yeah,
being as long as you've been in the business, because I'm just now getting into it, and I'm. Just to give a bit of personal experience, I never expected that if I ever wanted to get in comic books, I ever would, because I don't vote Democrat.
Right.
And the instant somebody finds that out, despite what Mags Bisaggio might try to tell people on Twitter, I would have been, hung in the street or something.
Well, yeah, or Alana Smith, who's actually an editor at Marvel, who has said, tweeted out, to all the Trump supporters, we're going to remember who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, that's if there's any evidence out there that there's a blacklist going on at Marvel, that's it. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't do stuff like that. And that needs to be investigated by the EEOC, frankly. It's that gross of a violation. And I think it's political discrimination. And the EEOC exists, as a government agency to go after, untoward hiring practices, where you've got blatant discrimination going on, whether it's race, color, creed, or in this case, your politics. So, and frankly, it didn't used to be this way in this industry. So I've been fortunate enough to be around long enough to harken back to a time when it just wasn't like this, and everybody got along. And when I worked at Devil's Due, I colored G.I. Joe for 2 years, and I worked with Mike Norton, and I worked with Tim Seeley and Josh Blaylock. And, Josh's politics are, I really don't know what they are. They're pretty center, even though sometimes he can be kind of weird. But Mike Norton and Tim Seeley are pretty open leftists.
Yeah.
And they used to be really cool guys. And I was an open center right guy. I was very pro Bush back in those days, and this was after 9/11, and we had just taken Baghdad, as I remember, when I moved out there, and I was working for him, and I was looking for some payback, frankly, and I was very happy and very supportive at the time of that war, because I wanted to see our guys go over there and kick some ass.
Absolutely.
And I have different feelings about it now. But at the same time, at that time, and the point that I'm trying to make here is that, everybody in the office except me was basically for the quote unquote war. Mm-hmm. I mean, not even people really in the Devil's Due office were even too hot about Afghanistan. And I think even liberals today will say that was just, even though we've been there like longer than any other war in the history of America.
Yeah.
But regardless, we all got along. And Mike and Tim and I would go out and we'd have beers and we'd hang out, and I would hang out in the office, it didn't really get brought up. It wasn't a big deal. And they knew that I had my views. They knew that I was from Arizona, which is a red state. And, it was no big deal. So they were all very tolerant, and very accepting, and they were all very nice. And the only time any kind of attitude might arise is if something got brought up. And and it didn't really ever go anywhere. Those guys could never really handle me, as far as like in a debate on the merits. So they just didn't really engage, and that's been my experience, is people know that I'll always be able to take them to the mat because I'm more informed than they are typically. So, it was just never an issue though. But I just remember so many good times with those guys going out to bars and clubs and just hanging out in the studio and bullshitting and watching these guys draw. And it was a lot of fun. And I just remember, in my experience, that was a far more tolerant time. And we're talking like 03, 04, like 03 to 05 is about the time that I worked for Devil's Due. So it was different back then. And, as much as people hated George W. Bush, we had mutual respect for one another, and we all agreed to disagree. And that was basically kind of the attitude. And it was never a big deal. Billy Tucci, who I've known for a long time, is probably one of the most outspoken conservatives in comics. I remember, being at the bar in Long Beach with he and Peter Steigerwald and like a bunch of people. And Billy and I are the only two guys there that are openly conservative, or at least openly center right. And nobody cared, and everybody else was either center or center left, and nobody cared. We're all there to have a good time, and to talk about comics and pop culture and just bullshit. Once in when Billy and I would get together, we would talk politics because we're both kind of political junkies. And we also, we were the only two guys there, like at the bar, And I remember we were talking about politics when we first met. We were talking about politics and how we both like to listen to Rush Limbaugh. And then all of a sudden, Sean Astin like came up to the bar, and like right in between us. It was so weird. He was just looking for a beer, and then then obviously everybody got distracted, and Billy freaked out and was like, I loved you and Rudy, you made me cry, so it just didn't used to be this way, and a lot of it has to do with, I think, the media and social media. And that's kind of taken the culture, I think, in an unfortunate way, to a place where everybody's just got to basically be digging in all the time. And then on top of that, so you can't have really a conversation with somebody. Then on top of that, it's sort of like we have these platforms like Twitter and Facebook, which don't have any kind of context attached to, or inflection is probably a better word, attached to what you're saying to people. So you can interpret something that I say potentially in at least a dozen ways, maybe a half a dozen ways. And I noticed this a couple weeks ago where I had an exchange with somebody who I agreed with, and we were what the hell were we talking about? We're talking about economics, and he's like an anacro capitalist, something like that, and which is fine, but I'm not interested in like playing like what if, so or make believe.
Can't blame me there.
Yeah, you got to deal with the the cards you're dealt. It's like, what did Rumsfeld say? You go to war with the military that you have, not the one that you wish you had.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You just got to deal with things. So, but like, we were just kind of going back and forth, and we were talking about social media and regulation of social media. Now that I'm starting to recall the conversation, and I'm in favor of breaking up some of these social media companies, because I see them basically at this point as sort of like an AT&T, a Ma Bell, something that there is no other competition, and they rule. They are ultimately masters of the universe when it comes to this stuff, and there doesn't seem to be anybody who's creating something new. So and they're not platforms, because they censor and they dictate what you can post. My buddy Larry Schweikert just got suspended for a week because he called somebody a retard.
Yeah.
And Twitter doesn't like that. They suspended me for 24 hours for calling somebody a retard. They really don't like that word. And, I had to explain to somebody the other day that it's not a clinical term. If your ankle is sprained when you run, your speed will be retarded.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you. So, we used to use it, and we never meant we meant stupid or slow. We weren't calling somebody Down syndrome. I mean, that's horrible.
It's a French word too. Are they just going to ban French speakers from the platform too now because of it?
It's this yeah, exactly. I mean, this is the thing. It's like a cable knit sweater. You just start pulling on it. These people just love to argue semantics, you know. So, and it's kind of like, I'm not interested in arguing semantics. You know, it's like, what's the difference between an omelet, a plain white omelet, and is it an omelet or not? You know, it's like, fuck you. You know,
Yeah.
Get out of here. So. Can I say that?
Oh, absolutely.
You can say whatever the hell you want.
Yeah. So I actually wanted to talk. So let's talk business here for a second, because all
right.
You know, I've discussed. I haven't had the chance to talk to John Mallon yet, sadly. But you know, Diversity in Comics and he and I have known each other for probably ever since his channel started.
Okay.
And he had told me like a little bit about the fact that he was going to do this book, and then he puts it out there, and then it explodes.
Yeah.
So for you as one of the three guys, you know, working on this from the start, you know, this campaign, it closed out at what, close to 400,000, I think. So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So until Ethan started Cyberfrog, like this was monumental. So, what do you think that this sort of success honestly means for the comic book industry in the long term? Because Comicsgate has not had a failure in regards to crowdfund yet. So
it seems like everyone has met, or I think everyone's exceeded their goals. I don't think any one campaign at this point has just met their goals. So everyone's exceeding their goals. You know, I mean, look, this isn't the first time this has happened. Prior to Jawbreakers, you know, you had Vox Day, you know, who was more crowdfunding a publishing company.
Yeah.
So it's like, for an individual graphic novel to do the numbers that Jawbreakers did is what was the first of its kind. And I still think, is Cyberfrog a comic or is it a graphic novel? Because what's the page count on that thing?
I want to say, from what Ethan told me, it's a comic, though it looks like there's going to be so much bonus stuff added to it now that's probably going to be a whole different beast.
Right. So I like to delineate between the two because they're both very different. Even if you're going with a 32-page comic or a graphic novel, they're different. You know, and it's like usually graphic novels are anything that runs over maybe 70 pages, 80 pages, something like that.
Yep.
So, you know, I mean, I guess you could technically say that Jawbreaker still holds the #1 spot as the largest crowdfunded graphic novel. Cyberfrog's obviously the largest crowdfunded comic book, long format comic book, because I think it's like at least 40 pages or something. But
yeah.
So, you know, I mean, both of them mean, you know, both of them are reflective of also what somebody, you know, and nobody really mentions this guy, Brian Pulido. You know, Brian Pulido's been doing exactly what we're doing in Comicsgate for at least 5 or 6 years. So, and Brian Pulido has like unbelievable success. You know, he usually, I think he crowdfunds like every 4 to 6 months, maybe. I think that's how he kind of spaces out his books and his projects. And he will know, you know, it's like, I remember watching him first out and he would go for maybe like 60, 70. And he'd always get 150 or 200. He'd always just blow it out of the water. So now he's kind of going for like 150. That's usually his goal. And within, I don't know, a week or two, you know, he's got 3,000, 4,000 people who have, you know, pushed him to 250, 275. So, I mean, Brian is a master at crowdfunding. And, you know, I know that, you know, Richard thinks a lot of Brian, and I think Richard looked at Brian and probably studied Brian, you know, and we've talked about Brian before, because Brian really does have the model that works. And that's why it's like, I laugh at people. I just chuckle, and I usually don't say anything when I hear this. And this is a reoccurring theme amongst Comicsgate, but it's not a reoccurring theme that you hear amongst crowdfunding. It's, the Comicsgate crowdfund model is not a sustainable model. Okay, well, why is it sustainable for Brian Pulido?
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, I just don't buy that, you know, and people are at this point are comfortable buying something relatively sight unseen. You know, you'll even with Brian, you'll with his Lady Death or any of the Coffin Comics crowdfunded campaigns, you get maybe, I don't know, 5 to 7 preview pages. You get to see the covers, you get to see the alt covers, you get to see a lot of the merch. So, so that's all people get to see. They don't get to touch, they don't get to feel, they don't get to flip through. They just get to scroll and look and see, a bunch of blue sky, essentially. However, Brian understands that, there's kind of 3 stages to the 3 acts to the crowdfund, as I like to call them. You have the launch, you have the campaign, and then you have fulfillment. And, Brian's so smart, that he knows that the fulfillment, that's the most important part, because you're fulfilling and exceeding expectations, and you're also teaching your customer base that you ship on time and you ship as expected and you don't have to worry. So there's never any doubt amongst Brian's customers, and that's what we need to start doing. That's ultimately the goal that we need to set in Comicsgate, which is and all of us are going to be judged separately. So Jawbreakers will be judged apart from Cyberfrog, and as far as fulfillment. So, which is the best thing that could happen. Some of us are going to be able to fulfill on time and as expected. Some of us won't. So it's like, it's not just crowdfunding a bunch of money, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, as far as like the sustainability of this whole thing, you have to prove to the customer that you not only ship on time and as expected, but you also get a great product. You get something that has great production quality, that has great paper and great binding. And it's like Trump Space Force. That's going to be Square Box, and we wanted to do that because it didn't cost that much more to do that, and we're going to give everyone increased production quality with the Squarebound book. So those are the things that I think when I think about how do we do this, how do we make it sustainable, and what is the future of it, and what does it mean? It's really about for me, because I know that all the creators that I work with are going to turn out top quality work. That's just what we do. So for me, I'm more kind of focused on fulfillment because I trust in my product. I just want to make sure it gets there on time, and that what we pay for in shipping and printing is going to give everybody their bang for their buck and then some. So I project my own expectations onto the customers, and I have extraordinarily high expectations. So I'm a tough customer. You know what I mean? I like to complain. Oh, yeah. So I'm one of those guys. But that's why my work looks the way it does, and that's why the products that I'm involved in look the way they do. That's why Clinton Cash is a gorgeous paper overboard hardcover. It's the same with Thump. It's a gorgeous book. It printed beautifully. So it's like, it's not just about the pages and the content. It's also about, I want to give the customers a fantastic experience, not only with the story, but something that they're proud to put on their bookshelf.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, I think that's
really important.
Yeah,
and Brian does that. Brian has top quality printers. He's got a great infrastructure set up. And, so, there's a roadmap there, man. And that's why it's just like, don't buy this hype when you hear it. And I hear it from some people on our side who say, this isn't sustainable. It's like, yes, it is, okay? Because other people are doing it and they're sustainable, and it's just a matter of getting the infrastructure set. And Brian is the guy who I look to when I say, how do we do this? Unfortunately, I worked for Brian. I've known Brian since I was 18 years old. Mm-hmm. So, he's a great guy, and he's also one of those guys who you can bounce ideas off of, and he's another one of those guys who's very approachable, like Chuck. Oh yeah, he's a great guy. So if anybody's ever met Brian at a con, that Brian Polito is a great, awesome, funny guy and very approachable, and just, he loves to interact with the fans. He just lives for it, man. So anyway, I think the future is very bright, and I think that it's rewriting the rules as far as how you make comics, and that has some of the more traditional publishers out there, I think, scared shitless to a large degree.
Yeah, that was actually the next thing I was going to ask you about, because it seems like it's not just that there are people that are that are veterans like yourself or Chuck or others that are, putting out stuff, or obviously Ethan, it's also has the potential to create new ones. Nasser Rabidi, you know, was for better or worse being stonewalled. You know, the fact you and I have already discussed my own work, you know, and I'm just as meticulous as you are when it comes to these. So Hatman can attest because he's my editor. You know how anal I am about making sure that everything is set and that that there are no plot holes, blah blah blah. But regardless, I think that it's creating it has the potential to create new careers as well for people that otherwise would have never been looked at for one reason or another, especially in the current climate. I mean, my whole thing is going to be that if my book turns out better than America Chavez, I'm going to throw that in Joe Quesada's face forever. It'd be like, you published that shit, and I topped it with a hand tied behind my back.
I wish I could say Joe cares, but Joe's he's a company man. You know, Joe's a company man. He's a corporate suit at this point who just wears a t-shirt and jeans to work or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't fault him for that. I mean, he's 50 some odd years old, and you know, he's paid his dues and he worked his way up.
Yeah, presided over an era of Marvel Comics that made a lot of money and then he screwed it up. But yeah,
dude, he's the guy. He's the guy that went down and hired everybody from CrossGen. You know, he's the guy. DC had an opportunity to go down there when Alessi went bankrupt, and Alessi had the best talent under one roof in all of comics. I mean, if you look at that cross-gen lineup from Chuck, to Steve Epting, to Frank D'Armano, Laura Martin, Sergio Cariello, I mean, on and on and on and on. I mean, they had the best artists, the best colorists, the best writers, and they were easily turning out, I think, some of the best comics of my lifetime because, non-superhero comics. They were doing incredible work, absolutely incredible work. I still think that guy and that shop does not get enough credit at all. So anyway, I had a couple friends who were working at the time. Jason Keith, who's a colorist at Marvel and was working there at the time, and everybody knew that they were going bankrupt and that it was over. Joe comes down, and Joe can't solicit. You know, he can't say come work for Marvel, but he can come down. He can take everybody to lunch. Oh yeah, and that's what he did. And basically just said, we're looking for top-tier talent at Marvel. And then, lo and behold, every single one of those people, I'd say nearly 90% of them, especially the colorists, Justin Ponser, Frank, Laura, Jason, they all ended up at Marvel. So, and Joe's responsible for that. Mm-hmm. And Joe ushered in an incredible era of creativity. And at this point, he's a manager, which is great. That's a great position to have at that age. He's dialed into a nice retirement. And let me tell you something, he's protecting his job and he's protecting his career and his livelihood. And that's what everyone is doing at Marvel right now. Everyone's just protecting their job and they're protecting what they have. A lot of this stuff at Marvel is very similar to Hollywood, where you have to go out and you have to say certain things in order to cover your butt. Mm-hmm. And all these actors that you hear say this stuff, especially the ones like Jim Carrey, who are really vitriolic. I do not believe that they believe this stuff. I think that they're doing it to curry favor and to get jobs and to get in the good graces of the money people who do believe it, who are active fundraisers for Hillary Clinton and for, leftist Democrats and these regressive leftists. So, and it's the writers who are the SJWs and also the true believers as well. But, when I see Scott Snyder and some of these people come out and do their thing and renounce Comicsgate or, tweet a bunch of liberal pap, it's just sort of like, they're all just sort of virtue signaling to each other. We're in this club and, I'm cool, you're cool, we're all the same, we're all on the same team, but I believe that they're protecting their jobs. And that's why it's sort of like even more disingenuous, in a way. But, whatever. Joe's, I've only met Joe once, but, what are you supposed to do at that age in that position, aside from just sort of toe the line? And, he's counting his days.
Yeah, I find it a bit unfortunate just because I had kind of, when I think of the era that he presided over.
But it's not the same. It's
Yeah.
not the same, man. I don't mean to interrupt you, but just remember something. You know, that was pre-Disney. That's all pre-Disney. So, you know, the whole culture changed, and you know, and you can basically, you need to accept the fact that the culture within Disney is very similar to the culture within big tech, where you've just got total groupthink. And it's like when they asked Mark Zuckerberg, you know, do you have any conservatives that work for you? And he's like, I don't know, you know, or they asked Jack Dorsey, you know, are conservatives afraid to speak up? And he's like, absolutely, because the culture is so intolerant from those who are on the left within those that work at Twitter. It's the same thing. It's the same corporate culture. It's the same mentality within comics now, because these are now corporate entities. You know, it's like when Andrew Breitbart formed Breitbart, you know, he then split it off into big Hollywood, big tech.
Yeah.
And so I like to call it big comics. That's what we have now. It's basically you have big pharma, big oil, big tech, big Hollywood, and big comics. You know, I mean, it really is. That's what they are. These IPs that we grew up with are now numbers on a balance sheet. That's it. And they're managed by a bunch of suits. Creative has nothing to do with anything anymore. So it's sort of like everybody's got to get over that. At first, they've got to accept it. And most people haven't accepted that. They still believe that this is the same company as it was back in 2000 or 2003. It's a radically different company. Now, some of the faces are still there, but the names have changed. And it's not Meet the New Boss, same as the old boss. It's Meet the New Boss, Bob Iger, you know, or Alan Horn. You know, that's over at Warner Brothers and ABC. You know, so it's like, you know, you've got to accept the fact that the Marvel comics that we all grew up with is not the same Marvel comics anymore. You know, and everybody can sit and piss and moan about it all day long, you know, and have wildly high expectations which come crashing down all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and it's taken me a while to get, you know, to accept it too. You know, I mean, I really didn't start to think about it this way until maybe about a couple of years ago. But Chuck was definitely onto this, probably at least 7 or 8 years ago when I first met him, because we started talking about how things were starting to change at DC, and this is way before Marvel got bought out by Disney. But Chuck's theory was someday these publishers will just print back issues, and they'll outsource all their IPs to smaller publishers. And I said, that's bullshit. That's never going to happen. You know, it's just like, no way, man. You know, they cherish these things. They cherish these legacy characters. You know, that's, you know, and you got guys like Quesada and Mark Waid and Mark Millar and like all these guys who, like, you know, love these characters and cherish them and like hold them sacred. And it's just like bullshit. You know, you get the right enough money and anything's for sale. You know, and they sold out. They sold out. That's what happened. That's ultimately what happened. Was Marvel Comics sold out, and it's not the same anymore. It really wasn't even the same after the bankruptcy in '97. You know, when Ike Perlmutter took over. And there's a great book about that called Comics Wars, which everybody should read. It's all about the bankruptcy of Marvel, and it was Perlmutter and Carl Icahn who were going after it. They were going head to head over the potential sale to take it over. Yeah. And it just changed. The culture started to change then. And then when Disney finally bought it, they were very hands off for the first 2 to 5 years. But it's just boiling a frog, dude. Totally boiling a frog. You were never going to see it just change overnight. It's going to slowly transform, you know, and it's just slowly gotten more twisted and sterile and also sort of homogenized and boring, you know, and that's why the Comicsgate books, all these IPs and characters which have been born out of Comicsgate, part of why they've succeeded is because they're new IPs, they're new characters, and people are doing not only interesting things with them, but they're new and they're fresh, and people are interested in that. Before, you could get away with using 80-year-old legacy characters if you were doing interesting and fun things with them. Well, they haven't done really anything interesting or fun with those 80-year-old legacy characters probably since the Ultimates, in my opinion, the Ultimate line back in 2000. You know, when Millar left, that was it for me. I was just like, there's nobody left here, and Bendis doesn't cut it for me. He never has. You know, Millar to me is still the best writer in comics next to Chuck and Mike Baron, you know, some of the old gunslingers. But like of new writers, to me, Millar has it down. He understands comics. Leave it to a Scotsman to understand American comics better than American comic writers do to a large degree. So, and, you know, I know people have lots of different opinions about Mark Millar, but it's, in my opinion, that's the last time that I got excited and was like eagerly enthusiastic and anticipating a comic, was waiting for that last 13th issue of Ultimates to come out, which was like, took like 6 months or something.
Yeah, no kidding. There were delays upon delays for that damn thing.
Yeah, and then we learned later that it had nothing to do with Hitch. You know, Hitchy was moving along, had his normal clip, had nothing to do with Paul Neary. It had to do with Mark and his Crohn's disease. So, you know, which can lay you up for months, you know, and it's probably going to shave maybe 15 to 20 years off his life. So it's one of those things, but I understood why he left, and it was at the end of his contract, and he's gone on to do just tremendous things, fantastic things. You know, I know Nemesis is sort of a controversial book, but I love Nemesis, and that's one of my favorites. Was never a huge Kick-Ass fan, but I really liked Nemesis. That's how you do politics in comics. And nobody does politics in comics better than Mark Millar and Chuck Dixon and Mike Baron. But Millar is the only liberal who can actually do it. Yeah. And do it right for both sides, you know, and I'm sitting here saying that, so that says something. The guy that worked for Steve Bannon and produced Clinton Cash and, you know, put together the creative team, like, loves Mark Millar. You know what I mean? And you know, I'm good friends with James Dillingpole, who writes for Breitbart. He's one of their bigger heavy hitters, and he and Mark are really close. Yeah. So, you know, and so it's like, you know, he's one of those old school guys. Mark's one of those guys who understands how to write for everyone and keep it interesting and crisp and engaging, you know? And that's something that's deeply lost on the current crop of writers at Marvel and DC, in my opinion. I think a lot of it's just this sterile, boring mess. And then on top of that, you're just kind of stuck with these old characters that they're not taking any really any risks with, you know, aside from shoehorning a bunch of, you know, goofy politics, you know, into the story. Yeah, if you want to call it that, a story.
Well, that's been my issue with Amazing Spider-Man ever since Nick Spencer took it over the last few issues.
He's a goofball.
Yeah, well, the first couple issues actually showed a bit of promise. You know, he brings back Mary Jane Watson, he reestablishes that relationship, and then goes nowhere with the storyline. Now, granted, Dan Slott didn't give him a lot of things because he basically got rid of the enmity between Eddie Brock and Spider-Man, and then he got rid of the enmity between Dr. Octopus and Spider-Man. So
what's left after that?
Yeah, there's just, and then the Goblin's in prison, and Cletus Kasady might have taken over his freaking brain. So it's like, and yeah, Nick Spencer's a joke.
It's stupid. I mean, it's just stupid, man. I haven't even read any of this crap, and it's like, you know, it's like, if this is the synopsis, it's just sort of like, oh, what are they doing? You know, it's everything about comics right now at the big two, within big comics. It's all about the soft bigotry of low expectations. You know, and nobody there gives a crap about doing, you know, going above and beyond.
Yeah, there's maybe 2 writers, I think, at Marvel right now that I think are writing books that should be bought every month. And I think it's, oddly enough, one of them's Jason Aaron on his Avengers run. His Avengers is really good. It's kind of a throwback to what made, back before he went crazy, Kurt Busiek's run fun. It's just good, solid, crazy, big team action. And then
Kurt's done some good work in the past. I really like his Secret Identity that he did. There was a alternate take on Superman. It was really, and Stuart Immonen on the art.
Oh yeah, Stuart was great.
Unbelievable.
And then the only other writer is Donny Cates, who's doing Venom.
Right.
And that's the even weirder part is the best comic Spider-Man oriented right now is one of his oldest nemesises in Venom. Like, how does that even happen? That's because everybody else isn't towing the line, or they're not doing anything intriguing. There's nothing intriguing going on. It sucks.
You know, they're just going through the motions. That's really what it is. And It's kind of, my theory is that's sort of the corporate mentality. You just sort of go through the motions, and you never really take any risks. You never really do, you never go too far. So you just sort of maintain this even strain, which, is hard on your audience, puts their feet to sleep. And then on top of that, the artwork that I'm seeing from largely Marvel is just garbage. It's just garbage in, garbage out, because I don't think that they have the money to hire the people that they want. I saw this cover from Lanil Yu the other day, and it just looked, it's either a rush job or they paid him half his rate, and he gave them, it's, as an artist, that's what you got to do. If you're going to pay me half, then I'm going to give you half.
Yeah.
You want 110%. You want to blow out huge Lanil Yu secret identity type splash page cover, whatever, something huge and enormous and explosive and expansive.
Yeah.
Then you have to, you got to pay for that. So it's like, oh, we'll give you half.
Yeah.
And he'll be like, okay, well, I'm going to give you half the detail, half the content. You know what I mean? So it's like, if I was going to spend 4 hours or 8 hours on this, I'm going to spend 4. I'm going to spend 2. And that's what I saw. And I looked, because I was just like, Lanil never phones it in. So it's either a rush job or they're not paying him. And my experiences at Marvel is their rates are garbage.
Yeah.
I mean, they are horrible. And they expect, and it's one thing to like pay somebody pittance and expect pittance in return. It's another thing to pay somebody pittance and expect the same type of results you would get. It's like where they would pay somebody maybe $200 to $250 a page, and you get, something that looks like something out of Laura Martin's work in Siege.
Yeah.
Is probably some of her best work, and it's just, over Olivier Copiel. Just beautiful work. It's so painterly and so gorgeous. The only other thing I can really compare her work to is her Rocketeer work on the reissue of all the Dave Stevens stuff that IDW did.
Yeah.
And she did that around the same time. So it's like, she's so on point. But okay, so I'm going to pay Laura $250 a page, $200 to do that kind of work. Well, now, Laura, you got to do that same kind of work for $90 a page.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's just not it. It's like $90 a page minus flats, which is probably going to cost you $10 plus taxes. So you're looking at working, the same amount for, somewhere around maybe $40 or $50 a page, and people can't live on that. The left like to go out and talk about, we need a livable wage. We need, the minimum wage needs to be a livable wage. Yet they don't give a shit about people in comics. Yeah. And all of these regressive leftists at Marvel and DC, they are paying people pittance. They're not paying them a livable wage as far as page rates. They're doing exactly what they accuse the 1%ers of doing. So it's just, if liberals didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. Yeah. But at the same time, it's just sort of like, when it comes to dollars and cents, as an artist, you gotta keep track of this stuff, man. And my theory has always been they're just not paying people like John Malin. They're not going out and hiring J. Scott Campbell. They're not going and hiring professional commercial artists who know how to draw things that reach people. And when I say reach, I also mean you're selling something. You're selling an image. J. Scott Campbell knows how to draw and sell an image. He knows how to sell that cheesecake. Yeah. John Malin knows how to sell panels and splash pages. He's a professional commercial artist, so he understands what the public is looking for and what's going to attract eyeballs on your.
Mark Bagley's the same way. And
Mark Bagley, God, one of the most underrated guys. I worked with him on Hulk and on oh God, what was that? What is it? When they killed Galactus. What the hell is that thing?
Oh, the
Original Sin? I think that's what it was.
No, he didn't. That wasn't what he worked on.
Galactus.
That was a Fantastic Four run, wasn't it?
Yeah, but this is one where like Thor, he and Thor disappear into a black hole. So I forget. I think it was Original Sin, but and Kitty Pryde was involved, and so I should post some of those JPEGs. But Mark is so talented, and he certainly understands. He's
my favorite, man. Like the fact that he even got to work, but you have no idea how jealous of you I am.
He's a nice guy too. He's really nice. I met him and his wife at New York Comic Con one year, and his wife's really interesting. She's like an arc welder, and like she's like she can work on cars and like, you know, they have like this little farm, and it's unbelievable at their place. So, but really interesting, nice people. But I just don't think that they have the budget. I don't think they have the money, which is why they're hiring all this cheap foreign talent, which looks like crap. Everything is basically a notch below the Cal Arts look. The colorists look like crap. The artists look like crap. Yeah. You know, aside from maybe like, I don't know, maybe like a couple, you know, flagship books. Even they've even slacked off on the Star Wars stuff. And at the time when they got all the Star Wars stuff originally, they put all of their A-listers on that.
Oh yeah.
You know, so I don't know. I don't get it. And frankly, I don't really care anymore, to be honest with you, because I've accepted that it's not the same place. It'll never be the same place. Those days are over. They sold out. And at this point, the only thing we can count on to see some semblance of the old Marvel is going to be on the movie screen. Oh, yeah. That's going to be the last bastion of what they have. And I do think that Chuck is right. I think that what's coming, and we have a trial run going on right now with Spider-Man where they're licensing out Spider-Man to IDW.
Yep.
That's the future. They're going to say, hey, what do we need to be making comics for? Who cares? You know, I mean, we got 80 years of back issues that we can just pump out trade after trade after trade. And let's make working with these goofy freelancers who complain about rates and healthcare and a livable wage. Let's make it IDW's problem. Let's make it Dark Horse's problem. Let's make it Devil's Due problem.
Yeah.
They're going to start licensing all this stuff out the same way Hasbro does, you know, with G.I. Joe. Josh just rented G.I. Joe. That's all he did. He rented the license. Udon rented the license for Transformers.
Yeah.
Josh rented the license for Voltron, you know, which Mike Norton and I relaunched. So it's like, that's the future, man. They're going to get out of this. And that's what I say. Joe Quesada is counting the days. You know, if he's lucky, he'll go back to TV, because I think that's what he was working on originally before they had him come back to Marvel after Alonzo left. So it's like, Joe's just sort of marking time, man. Everybody there in management marking time, because they all know that the end is nigh. It's coming, and they're gonna license out all this stuff, and basically just print back issues, and that's gonna be it. And then that kind of full corporate mentality will have finally taken hold, because the corporate mentality is it's all about the bottom line, and what the hell are we doing making comics and spending all this money when we can make it someone else's problem and we can get a cut. You know, I mean, they'd rather just rent these characters out and receive a lump sum every year rather than do this. Mm-hmm. And that's why they're also moving away from comics and doing all these videos and this lifestyle brand crap and these goofy. Who are these people that they have on these videos?
Idea. I was thinking about this last night, man. I was thinking about this last night because I've been doing YouTube for a while. I was a games journalist before this, and I think to myself, it's like, all right, I've got this. In my daily life, I ran a business. I work for a big corporation now in insurance, but you know, I've been working in business a long time. And I think to myself, it's like, all right, I've got a YouTube channel. I'm Marvel Comics. What am I going to do with this? Well, I'm not going to have these bunch of fat morons with soy face coming on there and doing funny dances. Nobody wants to see that. You can get that for free on Twitter. Instead, what I would do is every week I would have I would feature a writer. I would feature an artist. We just got Ryan Otley to do Amazing Spider-Man. He's one of my favorites. Where is my 1 hour video of an interview with Ryan Otley about coming on and getting to do one of the biggest selling comics ever after coming off of a long run with Robert Kirkman on Invincible, which in one of my favorite books ever. So I think to myself, it's like, where's that? You know, where's the discussion with what's his name? Donny Cates on his work on Venom. Why is he taking it in a horror direction? And they could have used that to promote other guys that I feel got unpromoted. The previous writer of Venom, whose name is escaping me at the moment. Like he was outselling Ta-Nehisi Coates on Black Panther every month. Every freaking month. No big movie coming out for Venom yet or nothing. You know, he's outselling him constantly. And there were several events. Marvel barely promoted them, and yet they sold. Mike Costa is his name.
Yeah.
And then they basically gave Mike Costa a mini series to close up his arc, and then when they threw him off the book and put Donny Cates on. So it's like they have no business acumen at all. They have no clue what they're doing.
Those are all great questions and concerns, and you're not alone. Everybody I know who's been in this business for longer than maybe 15 or 20 years, just sort of, when it comes to the big two, it's just sort of what they're doing is just sort of unrecognizable. It doesn't make any sense. And I remember having a conversation with Tony Daniel right before the New 52. And I said, this just seems like just another gimmick to me.
Yeah.
I just said, this doesn't really do much for me. I do like the redesigns on the costumes to a large degree. And I guess I understand why they want to kind of start from zero and go the opposite direction. But I was just kind of like, I don't know, man. And Tony, he was just like, no, he's like, this is a little bit different. He's like, I think it's different than just a sales thing. He said, the whole idea, the whole plan was to make sure it's not sort of like a temporary bump. We want it to sustain. And there were some really good books that did come out of that. One of which was The Flash.
Yeah.
That Flash series that Brian Buccellato and Francis Manapul did was the best-selling Flash series in 40 years. Mm-hmm. Nobody had done anything with the Flash until Brian and Francis worked their magic, and so much of what they did in that run ended up on the TV show.
Oh yeah.
So
and then on top of that, like everybody lauds Scott Snyder's Batman. I wasn't a fan. I loved his Swamp Thing though. I thought Swamp Thing at the time was freaking crazy, but that was what made it good. And then, his Batman sold incredibly well as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I liked. I worked with Kyle Higgins on Nightwing. I like that guy a lot. I think he does. Because he's a wannabe screenwriter. He wants to work in movies, and so he writes very cinematically. Yeah. I like Matt Kint a lot. I worked with him on Suicide Squad. I think he's got a real cinematic sort of. His working with him kind of reminded me when we were on Suicide Squad. It felt sort of like a TV show. It kind of pacing and whatnot.
Yeah,
and it had really great action and some really great one-liners. With our arc, they hijacked OMAC, so they could use them. It's insane, and you have Power Girl fighting with King Shark. I mean, it was just nuts. The whole thing was so much fun, and he wrote those characters perfectly. And I remember some of the artwork was done by Patch Zurcher. Mm-hmm. On that run, and then Jason Masters came in after that, and then Jim Fern, who's an old cross-gen guy. Those were fun stuff. And then I remember I was loving the series, and then when they launched the movie and it came out, I didn't see it in the theater, but I rented it one night on Prime, and I watched it on HBO, and I got like 15 minutes into it, and I was just like, this sucks. And I just turned it off. I was just like, this absolutely sucks. I'm not going to do this to myself.
Yeah.
And what did I do? What did I watch? I watched Dallas reruns. That's what I did. Okay. Because I really like watching old TV shows because they were all largely written to sell to a large audience.
Yeah.
Whether it's Dynasty or Dallas or Cheers or Family Ties, some of those old shows from that era were written for the largest audience possible. And nowadays, everybody's writing for niches and for these small little groups. So it's kind of like sort of one of the ethos, or one of the things that a lot of the Comicsgate creators certainly talk about is trying to write for as broad an audience as possible.
Yeah, me and Ethan always talk about this. We sell hamburgers here.
Well, yeah, basically. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, hamburgers are cheesburgers. You know what I mean?
But you make money that way, and that's
exactly. And the thing is, and I'm not even talking about there's a lot of people in Comicsgate who are hung up on this thing about being apolitical in Comicsgate.
Yeah,
and I don't really understand what they're saying, because if they're talking about shoehorning ideology into a book, I'm definitely against that.
That's largely the concern from the people that I've talked with.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like if somebody on the right were to do something like that, I guess like something ham-handed, it would be like having a protagonist say, build the wall.
Yeah.
Something like that. Okay. Yeah. I don't think I'd ever go that way because that's sort of cartoonish. That doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. Unless it was a joke. If it was a gag,
that's going down the Gabby Rivera route of writing, in my opinion.
Right. But I mean, it's sort of like, Millar wrote Steve Rogers in that first Ultimates run, basically sort of like a modern day right of center Trump voter to a large degree.
Basically, yeah.
But at the same time, he also there's an old man in there. So Mark was obviously pulling from maybe a grandfather or a great grandfather of that era, so he could walk and talk and say things like "swell," and whatnot.
Yeah, it's sort of the Captain America that Ben Shapiro keeps saying he wants to see on screen. Like,
right.
If I were to give Ben a which I sadly haven't met him yet. I know people who know him, so it seems
you're talking to one.
Yeah. So I have a feeling if I handed him a graphic novel, the first Ultimates, he would probably love it. But
I've given that out actually. I gave that to Larry Schweikert. I've given that to a bunch of different people. I gave Ultimates one to potential people who want to, go on the right, who want to go for graphic storytelling. I always say read Ultimates.
Oh yeah.
Read Batman Year One.
Mm-hmm.
I've given copies of these things to investors and people, because I feel they're great examples of how you can get messages across, without lecturing, and you can't tell me that first Ultimate story doesn't have morals and a moralistic tale that is center right.
Yeah.
And that's just the thing. It's just sort of like, okay, I understand why we don't like left-wing politics in comics. And to a large degree is because the left hate America.
Yeah, that's the big issue.
They hate its founding. They hate its founding principles. They hate the fact that the Constitution is really, a document of negative rights.
Mm-hmm.
It basically says what the government can't do. What it enumerates isn't that much. There's only so many amendments and and whatnot. So it's sort of like, what happens after you get to those at the end of those amendments? What does it do? It reverts. It says all other powers are with the people.
Yes,
so
exactly.
It's a document of negative rights, and liberals hate that. They would rather have something that says this is what the government can do. It can do this, and it can do this, and it can do this, and it can do this. It's like the Soviet Union. They had like a Politburo that would determine what the best bra was for Russian women.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's how much you can micromanage a culture, and through government. I mean, it's scary. It's bizarre.
What?
So it's like I'm not. So it's kind of like, okay, so it's like we all say we don't like that stuff because we love America. I mean, I would say even some of the comic skaters who describe themselves as classically liberal, I would imagine they would at least agree that America is an exceptional country.
Oh yeah.
And the regressive left, Gabby Ramirez, Alana Smith, they don't believe that. They don't believe America's exceptional.
Oh yeah, they despise it, and
they despise it.
I think that
so what's the opposite of that? So it's kind of like, well, what if my book was the opposite of that? I mean, so what if I did put politics into my book and it was the opposite of all that? That I love America, that I love freedom, that I love individuality, and I put those philosophies in there about freedom, individuality, liberty, the rule of law, Judeo-Christian values,
mm-hmm.
which are in a lot of books. You can point to them.
Yeah.
So it's like, what if I did put all that stuff in there? Would anybody disagree with those principles and values if they lent to the story and they made sense and they functioned within the story?
Yeah.
You're going to object to all that stuff?
Here's the irony: is that all of those things that you just described, you can find in Mark Waid's Captain America run, the original one.
You can find that
when I was younger.
You can find that in nearly everything Mark Millar writes to this day. You can find that in Chuck Dixon's work. I mean, Chuck will tell you that. It's like you're definitely doing morality tales, but it's like what he's always told me was you always stick to canon. You always stick to who the character is and their past, and you actually use those confines as a creative way to do something. You know, he told me that like the biggest challenge for him was working within those creative confines.
Yeah.
But that's the challenge. That's what makes it fun for him, you know. But it's like still at the same time, he's got a message. Everybody's got a message. Most of these things are morality tales of good and bad. Mm-hmm. So it's like you have to make judgments based on something. Where does that moral center pin come from? Where does it come from? You know, it doesn't come out of thin air.
No.
So, you know, so it must come from somewhere. And you know, and the majority of our laws are based on English common law and come from Judeo-Christian values, Western culture, Western society, Western, philosophies, you know, and that's, if you want to like break it down, screw political. It's like, forget being apolitical. Just put it out of your mind. Mm-hmm. For all the comic skaters out there, just take politics and to put it out of your mind. What we want ultimately are books that are pro-Western culture and pro-Western values.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what we want. Right, left, or center, we all love and embrace America and what the West has brought the world, you know? So it's through law and order, you know, and democracy, or at least a representative republic, you know?
Which 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, weren't even a right or left thing.
That's exactly, man. That's just the thing. Well, that's the thing. And this came about through a conversation I had with a guy who's in advertising, who I cannot name because he's a closeted conservative in Hollywood and writes for a big show. This guy's a writer on like one of the biggest shows, and he comes from advertising. That's how I know him, because I worked in advertising outside of comics for about 25 years. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about this, and I was just like, you know, I don't want to be ham-fisted, man, you know, but I want to be able to tell tales like Conan, you know, which are high adventure, but, you know, definitely gets across a, you know, values and an ethos and a philosophy that is one that I believe in, you know what I mean? And I want to be able to tell a story and use the mechanism of the story to bring the audience to a conclusion. But when you do it that way, you bring them to the conclusion on their own. Yeah. And everybody likes to come. Everybody prefers to come to conclusions on their own, even if they have to make believe that they came to it on their own. You know. Yeah. Nobody likes to be lectured to, and nobody likes to admit that they're wrong. So it's like, you know, you want to bring people conclusions on their own, so they feel like that they had a hand in it. And the best way to do that is to engage in storytelling with them. And that way they do have a hand in it, because they have to pay attention.
Exactly.
So you bring them along, and they follow the hero, and there's a moral to the story. I mean, you know, one of the easiest ones to follow is Clash of the Titans. Mm-hmm. Perseus, you know, I mean, you know, the hero rises, you know, from nothing to something. You get a little bit of favorable odds from the gods, and you know, you're rescuing the virgin and destroying the monster and saving at least half the city, because half the city basically gets decimated. So that's a morality tale, and it's the classic hero archetype. It's the struggle. It's like what Jordan Peterson talks about when he talks about, you know, the hero in all of us, you know, has to make our lives meaningful. And what does that mean? It's like, you know, you're the hero that goes into the dungeon to confront the dragon to either make it out with the gold and the virgin, or at least the gold. Yeah. You know. Or you don't, or you get incinerated by the dragon.
Pretty much, yeah. It pulls from Joseph's. What was his name? The book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces, basically.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. There's these archetypes that you know have been plugged into many different cultures over time. All these stories are largely the same. Yeah. Perseus, Theseus, Beowulf. You know, the Odyssey, or even like. You know, and basically comics are just American mythology. They're largely the same morality tales and stories and struggles.
Pretty much.
Yeah, at least the good ones are.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so, but I mean, yeah, man, I mean, it's like, I don't want to see ham-fisted politics in anything unless it's political satire, like Thump, or like My Hero Macadamia, or like Trump Space Force, or like Clinton Cash. You know, I think that's the only way that you can really do straight politics is through satire similar to what the National Lampoon did in the 70s and the 80s, as well as what not so much Mad Magazine or Crack did, because they would do spoofs, but really the National Lampoon are the guys who were able to, and that was Chuck and I's main inspiration for Clinton Cash graphic novel.
Yeah,
was the National Lampoon, and that's why the characters in the book are all drawn realistically. They don't have like big heads, which you would get with Mad Magazine or Crack, sort of those, sort of more caricature looking, drawings. We did everything kind of like, because at the time the National Lampoon had Neil Adams, Frank Springer, Russ Heath. They had a bunch of like top Marvel guys working for them and DC guys. So, and they just let them do whatever they want. Neil Adams did some great work for the Lampoon on a book, a character called Zimmerman. Everybody should check that out. It'll blow your mind. And you should tweet it to Neil. He'd love it. He'd love to see you bring that up. Trust me. So, I think that you can work politics in, but it's got to be in context, like through satire, or it's got to be just kind of baked into the story. Does that make sense? Where it's like, it's not overt, it's not in your face, because nobody likes that. Nobody wants to be lectured to. But
yeah.
But at the same time, getting back to my original point, when I was talking to my buddy in advertising about this, I said, I'm having trouble here. How do I do this? And he said, look, just take politics out of it. He said the same thing that I'll repeat myself. He said, take politics out of it. He said, it's not about right or left. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about Western cultures and Western values. Do you want to preserve those? And I said, absolutely. And I want to fight for them. He said, okay, then you need to tell stories that are pro-Western culture and pro-Western values. And that way there's no ideology.
Yeah.
So we get everybody that loves America, and that's who I want. And everybody that hates America, don't buy my books. And you're not going to want to anyway, And it's like, I realize that I probably sound like some of the SJWs over Marvel. Don't buy my books. But seriously, you're not going to want to, because ultimately, I don't think I could ever tell a story that didn't promote Western culture and Western values. What would be the point?
Yeah, I'm with you. So, before we take off for the day, usually we end the podcast with about a 15-minute Q&A session. I know you got stuff that you're a busy guy, Brett. So, would you like to stick around for a little bit longer and answer some questions from the fans, or do you have to take off?
No, I got a little bit time left. Yeah, I'll stick around.
All right. So, the first one we got is from our patrons Discord. Talon Silverbean wants to know, what do you find better to work on, graphic novels or... he says a graphic novel or a trade. So
yeah, I understand what he's saying. I would much rather work on a graphic novel. I'm doing one right now with Chuck Dixon, which I just got the cover artwork back from Dave Dorman, so we'll probably be able to announce it soon now that we have a cover. But it's a 98-page graphic novel. It's I kind of have the same position on this I had on Clinton Cash. I had to put together the creative team, be the production manager, the creative director, the editor. So I'm running the whole book, and Chuck turned a 12-page adaptation into this 98-page just masterpiece.
It sounds like Chuck.
Yeah, and he did it in like 2 weeks, and then I've got Durlas Santa Cruz, who's a very, very talented guy down in Brazil, who I've worked with on many things at DC, including Vibe, and what else? What the hell else did we work on? Batman, Vibe. We worked with Gail Simone on The Ventriloquist for Villains Month, which is a really fun book. And Gail and I talked about that a couple of weeks on Twitter. We went back and forth on that, and she thought we did a great job, so she was very complimentary.
Well, that's good at least.
Yeah, and then we also did the Killer Frost. We did that for Villains Month as well. That was fun. And he's a really talented guy. He's gotten better over the years. He does animals better than anybody. And I reference animals because this book that we're doing is a werewolf western. So it's set in like 1901. It's a horror story. And these guys who are producing it are money. The money people are all movie people.
Okay.
So we're gonna, their thing is, let's make the graphic novel first, and we'll start to build an audience, and then film live action, and that's the plan. So this thing will be graphic novel first, and probably, I would imagine somewhere 6 to 7 months later, we'll have live action, which will be great.
I love the sound of it. And then the other question that Talon said he wants to know, how does one go about pitching a story for a comic? Do you need to have a rough design of the comic or just the idea to whoever is interested? Personally, for me, I had the script already written for the first issue. So, but that's, I mean, Brett, you've been pitched by several people before that I know. You know, what is basically, when people are coming to you as the colorist, is what do they already have in hand?
Well, like, if I was to produce it myself, like I did on Clinton Cash or like on this new one, I would be looking for not only either a treatment, at least a treatment, a rough sketch of what you want to do. I don't think it doesn't necessarily have to be finished work. And a lot of the times I just like to read a treatment, so I have a basic overview, because I don't have time to sit down and read every script that's sent to me.
Yeah.
So it's like, you can send me a synopsis, and it's really a Hollywood thing. This is what Hollywood does. You can send me a synopsis or just a quick breakdown of what it is. And then the other thing, I'm a visual guy, so if there's like some visual reference that you can send, and it can be it doesn't have to be drawings. It doesn't have to be panel work. Go on Google Images and search for things and pull images off that whatever it is. It's like with this graphic novel I'm doing with Chuck. It's called Blood, and so when the writers sent me their treatment, they also sent me which is a 12-page treatment, very similar to what you get in Hollywood. And then they also sent me a production deck of actresses that they had envisioned for the lead role, for the lead male, and like 3 or 4 different actors' faces, like profile shots. And they also had some visual reference of werewolves that they liked from past movies that they wanted us to follow, kind of the overall design. And then they also had some movie references for me. They're like, we really like this movie called The Witch, and visually we want it to look like The Witch, and the tone and like the isolation that's in that movie. We're going to kind of play off sort of like that feeling, girl in the cabin in the woods, far from town, so it's sort of like that, with a werewolf stalking her. So it's like, that's the kind of stuff I like. Give me a rough overview with some visual goodies, and that way I can start to work it in my head, not only with your treatment, which is just sort of a rough breakdown, but also with the visuals you send me. And writers need to be visual, and that's something I really like about working with Chuck, is he puts lots of JPEGs in his. He plants JPEGs in his script. So it's like, if there's a house or a door on a house, or a certain horse or a certain rifle, he'll put it in the script. And that's great. I like that, from my standpoint as an editor, because I have to make sure this stuff is consistent. Yeah. The artist is translating, not only the panels and the shots and the story, but also the details. Winchester 30-30. It's like stuff like that. It's got to be that. Otherwise, it doesn't work. There's no the little details like that are things that bring authenticity, which is ultimately what you're trying to do as a writer as well as an artist. It's got to be authentic, look authentic, and feel authentic. Otherwise, there's no suspension of disbelief. You're never able to make that leap into the make-believe. You're just kind of like, whatever,
Yeah,
and that's a lot of what the politics does. That's what this overt political indoctrination in a lot of the Marvel and DC books these days, especially Marvel, does, is that you get this shoehorned, ham-fisted crap, and it pulls you out of the story. It suspends, you have no more disbelief. There's no suspension of disbelief whatsoever. So there's no make-believe, and you're disengaged then, and then you're like, screw it, I'll go play video games or something, So, but yeah, those are the things that I like to see, and I prefer. I'm sure everybody's different, but I like. One of the things that I don't see enough of, probably with people that pitch me or send me stuff to look at, is visuals, because I do get a lot of stuff. Most of the stuff I get are from writers. So for all you writers out there, start doing some Google image searches, or if you don't like Google, go to DuckDuckGo or whatever. But start throwing together images in your scripts, or at least doing like a presentation deck where you can show, maybe like, if there's visual reference of a town in a movie or whatever, that takes place in the story that you want it to look like, throw that in there. Because I know writers think about this stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. See, because I mean, with me personally, what I ended up having doing is there were some fans of the show that said I'd love to sketch some of the stuff for you. I'm like, okay, sure. Mm-hmm. So now, like with my stuff, I've got 2 or 3 of the characters already sketched. I've got an overview of what I want to do. Mm-hmm. So when I pitched the guy who's going to be working on my book project Lazarus, I already had sketches to say this is kind of the visual vibe of this, mm-hmm. and then I had something that I could reference to. It's like if G.I. Joe meets Devilman. Like that, you just say that, and it just tells people something about the tone and the timbre and so on and so forth. Like,
absolutely.
Who's as a writer, like who's inspiring you? With me, my 2 biggest are Warren Ellis and Go Nagai. Mm-hmm. Bam! It tells you exactly where I'm coming from.
Yeah, so. No, I think that's all that stuff's really helpful. Because you're trying to sort of build a world for somebody, essentially, and most people are not visual people. Mm-hmm. Even comics people, are readers are not necessarily visual people. They depend on guys like me and others to fill in the blanks with the visuals. So, when you're trying to sell this stuff, you definitely got to have the visuals in there, even if it's just sort of rough sketches or even just simple stock. Looking on websites like Shutterstock. For like stock photography type things, those are great resources because you can get a lot of sort of generic things, which, you can say, this is what I think, but I want to tweak this a little bit and tweak that, I think all that stuff's really helpful. And on top of that, it just better helps sells your pitch and sells your idea. Cause that's ultimately what you're trying to do. You're trying to sell yourself, your story. And, it's the old adage, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So
amen to that.
Yeah. So, go for broke, make sure it's awesome and lead with your best stuff. And, put, instead of, put a cover page on it, with like a mock cover or something, like, even if it's like stock photography and, just dress it up, wow. There's a little bit of wow factor. It goes a long way.
Yeah, exactly. Hardboiled Entertainment wants to know your experience with how is your experience with Space Force different than your experience with Jawbreakers, and what did you like about both?
Oh, yeah. Space Force is basically something that Tim and Chuck and I developed in about like 5 minutes in a Facebook private group, like just messaging each other back and forth. So. And then we took it off there and just started batting ideas around via email. And Chuck had the rough outline in his head within probably, 5 minutes of a basic structure of what he wanted to do. And so then at that point, he and Tim kind of went back and forth, I think, with some maybe a little bit of tweaking on the story. And Tim was just sort of like adding and enhancing. And then my biggest influence was I just said, look, this has got to be Independence Day meets Aliens meets Starship Troopers. Obviously those are all the things that we grew up watching and loving. So it's got to have those influences and some references. But I said, one thing that I have to have this. I said, I have to have a Robotech Star Blazers influence. I need my Macross.
Oh, yes.
I need my Southern Cross. I need my Next Generation. I need my manga, or my early, days in the 80s of anime, that I grew up with. And for me, it was largely Robotech, Transor Z, Battle of the Planets, G-Force.
Oh yeah.
And I watched both. I've seen both, but Robotech was the big one. That's the one that kind of knocked me back on my heels when I was a kid, because I was accustomed to watching G.I. Joe and Transformers and a lot of this stuff, which was very, very safe for kids and very wholesome, and Robotech, people died and it was much more like the movies, and it was very much more cinematic and Robotech, especially Macross, which is like, late 70s Japanimation, just edited for an American audience. But I wanted some mech, I wanted to get my mech on. So we've got some really cool mech robots in this thing. And I wanted something sort of like the Yamato or the SDF-1. That was always sort of the thing. And Chuck sort of wrote it sort of ubiquitous. Chuck really wrote it. When Chuck started hearing what we were talking about, he was kind of like, "You guys are such dorks," and like, and I was like, "You got it, man." I was like, through and through, this is my childhood. This is my pop culture childhood. That is some of the best of all time, and so he just kind of wrote it open ended like that, and then so Tim could just embellish and give me all the things that I wanted visually, and then Mark Pellegrini came in a little bit on the back end as well, and we expanded some things, because one of the stretch goals was to make it longer. So we stretched it out. We added some things. We added more action. That was the one thing that I wanted more. I remember after reading, I think once we got the extension, the stretch goal to extend it out, I was like, just pack it with action, and pack it with big action, splash pages and double page spreads, make it big and cinematic and explosive. That's fun. Yeah. That's the fun, that's the kind of fun, element of comics, which you can really embellish, and it's fun for the reader, man. I mean, I hate to harp on Ultimates too much, but it's one thing to have the double page spreads from Brian Hitch. It's another thing to have that 8-page spread from Brian Hitch in issue 13, which we don't have anything like that in Trump Space Force, but that thing was outrageous. I mean,
absolutely.
It was insane, dude. It was like, it reminded me of back in the 50s, they had Super CinemaScope.
Yeah.
And it was literally 3 screens.
Yeah, I remember. 3
projectors, and I mean, I've only seen, documentaries and stuff of these things, and I've seen them formatted, but that's kind of what it reminded me of. They just decided to just go I've never seen that before. I've never seen an 8-page spread. I've never seen it since, and it was probably really expensive and probably a pain in the ass. But it's basically a mini poster.
Pretty much, yeah.
But it's just completely horizontal. It doesn't fold. It doesn't fold vertically and then horizontally. It doesn't fold out.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that kind of stuff. I love big splash pages. I love it as a reader. I love it as an artist. It's fun. And frankly, if you don't build that kind of stuff into the story, you're not keeping your artists engaged. It should be that. There should be all that fun element, because we love doing that stuff. It's kind of a payoff in a lot of ways. When you're working on this stuff and you're slaving over it and you're giving it your all, it's kind of like, if I'm going to do all this, give me the double page spread, give me the huge action scene with this all this expansive detail, and that's the stuff that drives the fans crazy, and that's what makes comics so much fun. Unlike TV or movies, you go back and you pore over the art. After you've read it maybe once or twice, you'll still pick it up just to look at it.
Oh yeah.
Just to admire the art and pore over it, and because you're not looking at all the detail when you're reading the story. You're moving at a pretty good clip. So that needs to be back. You need to have the kind of artwork that's going to compel the reader and the customer to go back over it.
Exactly. I mean, I can't remember the name of the artist who did the Luther Strode books, but that was something he had down pat. Ryan Otley's another good example of it.
Yeah, that guy's insane. Yeah,
absolutely. And like
beautiful stuff.
There's one I've been writing. I've got the book that I had told you about, and then I have another one that I'm working with Brian Martinez, who's part of the Honey Badgers.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm basically writing in a 2-page spread of a dude getting kicked in the face. Full detail, like those, slow motion
like
shots you see of somebody getting hit,
cover of Pantera, vulgar display of power.
Hell yes.
Punched in the face.
Hell yes, dude. I'm a huge Pantera mark. So
yeah, it's funny. I saw those guys. I saw them about 4 months before Vulgar came out. At this concert called Springfest. I think I was like 13,
mm-hmm.
and they were opening up for Testament. It was a festival, but Testament was headlining it, but Sepultura was there, and there was a bunch of bands there that day. But they played a lot of Cowboys, but then they played about half of Vulgar, because I was like, I've never heard these songs before, but and I was a little disappointed because I wanted to hear Cowboys from Hell, but
Of course.
But then they started playing the stuff which I didn't recognize, but it was like on a whole nother level, and I was like, oh shit, like this is new album, you know. And I turned to my buddy and I was like, you realize this is like the new album? And he's like, it's gotta be, because it's all new material, you know.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, that album cover is so classic.
Oh yeah. But
so
you definitely have to keep your artists engaged. Another question that we got,
and, it also motivates them, man. You got to motivate them. You got to ignite the competitive spirit in them. You got to make them rise to the occasion. You know that's another thing writers need to be cognizant of. You know, it's like you need to expect the best out of your artists, but you gotta sometimes you gotta pull it out of them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Ryan Potter had a really good question. I think because I'm known for being a writer, he's probably meaning this partially for me, but should I have multiple stories already planned out, or should I stick to one at a time to flesh it out? My personal experience is that I'm doing 2 right now, and I feel stretched. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I try to focus on two main things. If I have any other ideas, I have a document where I just put them down.
Right.
Kind of
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, because like there's one later I plan on doing. I've been talking about because I think it's an interesting idea called The First Servant, which is about the first guy Dracula ever turns. And cool. Like I know the exact guy I want to pitch to do the art too. And I'm just like, write it down, get your main shit done first, and then come back to it.
Well, you don't want to forget stuff, so you always write stuff down because you will forget. So if you have a good idea, always write it down. This is a cardinal rule in advertising, because you put things out of your mind, you clear your mind in order to allow new ideas to come in. A lot of the times when you're trying to, when you're working in advertising, so things will come to you and then they're gone. Okay, I mean this happens all the time.
Exactly.
So write it down. Write it down. I write everything down on Post-it notes. Or I have a legal pad. I don't resort to typing because that means I've got to go and, sometimes you got to use a mechanism to do that. So it's like just jot stuff down, have a place where you're writing notes. But yeah, I would agree. Take it one at a time, like you said, and I think it's much better to sort of hone the blade, hone the edge, of what you're currently working on and make it the best that you can. Doesn't mean that you can't have future plans for your characters or as far as an arc. I think even Lucas sort of had a rough idea of what he wanted to do with Star Wars. Even with the first 3 when he scripted A New Hope. Even though I think some things did change, but I'd say don't spread yourself too thin.
Yeah. Indeed. I've seen it time and time again. You can tell when a writer or an artist is spread way too thin. They're working on too much.
Your work suffers
Bendis, I think, was a prime example of that.
Oh, I mean, look, you can't be all things to all people, and you just got to know your limitations. And some people can, some people are really fast, some people aren't. I wouldn't compare yourself to other people like that. It's just sort of like try and do your thing the best you can, and whatever way you have it set up, try and refine it, try and make it better,
Yep. Amen to that. All right, folks, we have reached the end of the show. Brett, go ahead and stick around. There's something I want to talk to you about before I let you go, but we're going to go ahead and end the show here. Folks, if you have questions for me and Hatman to answer in the overflow, please go ahead and put them in the chat right now, and we will definitely get to them. But Hatman, do you have any final words?
I think everything that has needed to be said has been said.
All right. Well, folks, again, Brett, we want to thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. My name is Micah Curtis.
I'm Alex Baldwin, also known as The Hatman.
We'll see you guys next week.
Deus Volt.